Hey everybody, this is Rita from I Don't Like Murder, and here is my friend Jenny. Hey Jenny.
Hi, Rita.
Hey. So we've been away for a bit of time and we're back. Yay. So we wanted to go over a little bit about where we're headed in the future, which is exciting. And then we just wanted to review actually the 10 cases that we posted. And we've got our show on two different channels, our Intricate Energy and then our I Don't Like Murder channel. And we've had quite a few people watch our videos. So we're super excited. We started this kind of grassroots, not, just learning as we went. And the fact that one of our videos has an ad on it, we were quite thrilled. Of course, we don't have enough subscribers or hours to be monetized, but we're working towards it. So we're really excited to be back. Everything is well. And of course, we've had busy time. I think I've mentioned in videos before that my dad had been sick. He did pass away in April. And it was actually a beautiful passing. That's not just the only reason. It's just we our paths kept crossing in different ways where one could do it and one couldn't, and now we're back on track. So thank you so much for yay. Thank you so much for joining us again. Again, we're going to go through the last 10 cases just really quick to give you a flavor and an update because there's been some updates in some of the cases. And then we had the very first case that we talked about. Someone just a couple days ago emailed, said that she had some more information. So we're super excited about that. We're waiting to hear because that would be mind blowing because it was a case that was so long ago. It's really hard to pull that info. So here we go. Speaking of that case, it was the Jefferson Walker versus the state of California. This is the one that happened in my hometown when I was a little kid and remembered the memory of it. And then I was amazed at the trajectory of not only finding out about what I learned as a kid is that nobody could believe it was him who did it. And because he was a deacon in the church, a very respectable man in our town, and his wife ends up being bludgeoned. So no one jumped to the conclusion that it was the husband at that time. And I'm, looking back as a memory of what my parents talked about and what was in the newspaper. But again, when I was a little kid, the town had 45,000 people in it. It has about 85,000 now. It hasn't grown that big. So that is a small town to me in terms of is that everybody knew everybody's business, it seemed, but to have something that horrific on the front page of the newspapers. And then for not only was he found to do the killing, he admitted it on the stand. It was a whole setup between him and a friend of his that he talked into making the crime scene look like a break-in. And it was a horrific crime. He bashed her in the head with a heavy fishing weight. So it was just amazing, just that kind of crime could happen. Then he gets on the stand and says, "Yes, I did it, and I did it because she was too perfect and she wanted me to be perfect, and that was his solution." So mind-boggling. But going back and researching the case, it was so interesting. And Jenny, I'm sure you remember me saying this, is that when he was able to every 4 years go to the parole board, and that was the sentence to say you get a life sentence or 30 years, or I think it was life, but every 4 years you could go back and apply for parole.
Yeah.
And the last court document that I could find in the state of California that was at the end of the 90s, and he kept getting denied. I think it's his third denial. And it was all about the fact that while he's in prison, he's a model citizen. He's got super educated, got multiple college degrees. He's kind of the deacon there. So he is a spiritual advisor there. And he has been what they call a model citizen. And the parole board said, yep, that's the problem because nobody saw this coming. So how does a guy who has, been married for many years, two small kids, pillar of society in the community, and all of a sudden one day wakes up and kills his wife, really brutally kills his wife? And
Yeah.
so it was intriguing to me to say, we kind of grow up in the judicial system saying, well, if you're a model prisoner and a model citizen in prison, then that you can get time taken off when, or that can be strongly considered when you are trying to get out early, or or an early release, or on parole. And it was a twist to me to go, oh, him being a model citizen is what's keeping him there, a model citizen in prison. So that was exciting, and that was the case just because we did that last year, that show, that first show, and a very nice woman emailed saying that she also grew up in the same town I grew up in, and she knows things. So I, of course, sent her a note right away and said, yes, please, we would love to talk more, because the case is so old in the system, it's not easy to pull up. And if he was moved, prisoners sometimes moved all over the place, and I'd have to look at every federal or state prison. I just haven't been able to locate him after a certain time. He could have
Yeah.
passed for all we know. So
Yeah.
hopefully she calls back, but that would be
Yeah.
amazing, because the more we research and especially go back and look at some of the changes in the cases, the more we're able to, or utilize some of the court system for whether it's PACER, just to look at cases that are in the system now, or that are pending, or there's just a lot of info to collect. But we hope to bring you an update on that, and the twists and turns. And before I hand it over to Jenny, just a note. A very dear friend of mine came to visit, hadn't seen him in a long time. We talked, but he was stopping by, and I was telling him about the show, and he's like, "Oh, you should talk about this." And he mentions a good friend of ours whose mother was murdered in our town. Then he reminds me, I said, "Oh my gosh, that's right." Then he talks about a person who was a little bit older than us, as we were in high school, who ended up murdering his dad. Then I started looking up, going, this quiet little town, and it's these cases aren't oh, they got into a bar fight. Oh, that actually did happen. That happened, because I sent that to you, Jenny. There was a bar fight at the bowling alley,
Yeah.
and the guy, remember that guy, pulled a gun and killed somebody in the bowling alley, the only form of recreation we had in this small little town. Going, oh my gosh. So now I'm starting to look and go, my town may have we go from, if you look at crime statistics, it'll say so many robberies, so many car break-ins, so many house break-ins, and it's all by percentages. And I swear to God, if I look, I think my town's going to be, oh, those are minimal, but the crazy murders, that's pretty high. So it reminds me, yeah, just of just opening that door to, because when just somebody just rolls off all these different things, like, oh no, we're connected, we know people who know people, and I'm like, what in the world? So maybe this whole thing will be turned out to be my town. My
Well,
town, yeah.
I live in a very murdery city,
Yes,
so
you do too. So I just thought it was funny, is that when it was just a funny thing. So, but really excited that somebody, we're always excited when we have a subscriber, super excited that people are watching and commenting on the show. So can't thank you guys enough. And we promise we will get better at it, because both Jenny and I will go, did you check? Because I haven't checked yet. Did you check? And we get crazy happy that when we see the videos, because here's the truth. When we comment, or when someone comments on a video, it goes to an email. And so we have many emails for the show. We also have our own emails. And then it was all of a sudden one day I looked and went, we have like 30 emails, people commenting on shows for the last few months. So we're not doing that anymore, because now instead of I'm uploading it. But if we don't respond right away, it's probably because we didn't see it, because I don't go back and look at our channel every single day. I will now, though. I've got a little system in place. So I'm sitting there going, well, we haven't worked on it, and probably no one has seen it. And then I check the analytics and go, well, people are watching it. So we just want to let you know, we love everyone who watched, and we're thrilled that you watched for as long as you did, and excited people subscribed. But But yeah, we're back. So
Yes.
Jenny, let's talk about the second case we did, which was the Kendrick Johnson case.
Yes. So Kendrick Johnson was a 17-year-old high school student in Georgia who got murdered or committed suicide, but most likely murdered in his school. There were suspicious circumstances surrounding his death. And there's a lot of information out about how his parents have fought to get justice for him. There are possible FBI cover-ups because some of the boys that may have been involved in his death fathers are in the FBI. So there's a lot of different little twists and turns in that one, and there's still not really a resolution. The last I heard is that the police know who committed the murder, but there's not enough evidence to convict. So that's a really unfortunate situation. But it's really cool to see how his parents are still fighting for him all the time.
That's got to be devastating for them.
Yeah.
To have that little bit of info, it's just insult to injury.
Yeah, it is.
Then that reminds me of one of the main reasons our show is a little bit different. It's because looking at each of these cases from all these different perspectives. But there, years ago, I would have never thought that if a crime was committed, that the city or the community, the county or the state wouldn't be fully behind it. Right. But the reason I say that is because I just didn't know before until I started watching a bunch of Datelines that people say there isn't the money, or because to bring a case to trial is so expensive. And then if you have an area that doesn't have a lot of money for these trials, that the DA has got to make sure that they're going to win every single time, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing, is that so when you hear, you got it on film, you got the fingerprints, and they still say, there's just not enough evidence. You got somebody partially admitting it and 5 eyewitnesses, and then as long as the DA can say yes, but there could be, it has to be absolute, right?
But
it has to be without,
yeah, you also have to think about double jeopardy though also.
Right.
So if they think there's more information out there.
Exactly.
And we might not get a conviction this time, we need to wait. Right. It could be a double jeopardy situation.
Sure.
And then on the flip side, I grew up in a town that the police were very corrupt. So I don't think that there's something going on back there on that side of things.
Right. And that is the thing, that it's always going to be the peril, is that part of the judicial system is the state.
Yeah.
And so they get to pick and choose what kind of the funds that go into it, and they just get to pick and choose. And then when they choose yes, they have all of the access to versus someone who is who doesn't have an attorney, who has to have a public defender, who is right. And so it's so I always think of those in the reverse of those small communities don't have a lot of money. The prosecution is who chooses to take the case, has all of the resources. That public defender is in that same department, in that same building, right? In a community doesn't have a lot of money for their judicial part of it, is to go, holy Toledo, that's a lot of work. But that's how it looks. Okay, so you got 2 in a row. The third show that we did was the Dexter killer that Jenny brought us.
Okay, I didn't realize I had 2 in a row, but okay. So
it must have been me being delayed one week, probably. Say, Jenny, you do it. Go ahead.
So the Dexter killer is about a guy who got lured into a garage in an alley through a dating app. Be careful about dating apps, people. Make sure you go to a public place. So this woman they'd been messaging. She messaged him, hey, gave really weird directions. Come meet me at my house and then we'll go out. And it was come to this alley and go through this garage. And then you go through and whatever. Weird. Should have been red flags all over it, but obviously he didn't, either he didn't realize it or he, whatever, didn't
Right.
care, thought I'm a man, I can handle it. Well, there was a man there who ended up killing him. The murder actually, his motive behind murdering was loosely based on his theory of these men are cheating on their wives and they shouldn't be. This was not a case of him cheating on his wife. He was single, but that was kind of the mentality behind that.
Yikes.
But my theory on that is, one, dating apps are creepy. Two, if you're going to use them, public place, always public place, and let somebody know where you're going to be.
Plus, if I remember correctly, which it's all of these shows that we're talking about are on their channel, I Don't Like Murder on YouTube. The thing is that it wasn't just like, oh, meet me at this hotel. It was like back alley, back room.
Yeah.
It was really bizarre. Is that someone, it's like, when is your spidey senses going to come up and say, I shouldn't be going to this very weird place. It's getting weirder by the second. When do you stop?
And she wouldn't give him an address. She just said it was something along the lines of, go to this cross street and then go down this alley and it's a second garage and go through the garage and then you'll be in my yard or whatever.
Right.
Something like that. Like very sketch.
Right. Yeah, that's what tripped me out going, there's no way.
Yeah.
Right.
I think men and women have different senses about that, because no woman would ever do that. None. Like, I cannot imagine a woman that I know thinking, oh, let me go down this alley and go through this garage to meet this guy that I don't know that I met online.
Without saying something to someone, and then someone would go, are you crazy? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Are you crazy? And then either one of two things. If she's that crazy, she would text the text to the friend.
Yes. 100%.
And then all of a sudden she wasn't around for 2 days.
Yeah.
And then the friend would call the police to go, I think we have a problem.
Right.
So good luck. Don't be scared going down the alley. Oh my gosh. But yeah, that was a good case. Just it was because Dexter's all about him trying to right a wrong by doing a wrong.
Yes.
To say, this is a terrible person, I'm going to kill them. But also, according to the TV show, he had a compunction to kill. He just kind of focused it on doing what he thought was doing good, eliminating people who should not be in society.
Yeah, his father, Dexter, the TV show, his father was a cop and trained him because he knew that he was a serial killer. So he trained him to go after murderers. It's kind of like, and it was specifically like taking the trash out, the people that the judicial system wouldn't get or couldn't get or whatever, like, oh, you can get him. Like, that's kind of how that started. So
yeah, it's kind of like, there's another,
like, you're doing good, but you're doing bad at the same time. But it's
I tried to watch Dexter once, and I cannot dissociate from some of the gore that's on TV, and I really love the actor. And sometimes it was like, there's certain things, whether it's just really realistic, as if I would know what someone being literally chopped up with an axe look like, or but, and then, so you see, because what happens for me is I see it happening and go, oh my God, that's terrible. But then when the music starts and it gets dark again, I'm thinking, I can't see that again. But everyone said it was a wonderful show.
It was a wonderful show.
I only made it through one, and even listening to it, like when I close my eyes, it's still horrific because I know what's going to happen. Because I mentally, so I'm not the person to take to a scary movie, because I'd be covering my eyes through the whole thing and plugging my ears. I don't know what I can watch. Yeah, I know, exactly. I'm a big baby, but okay, that's about me. So the fourth case that we did was the case of Samantha Josephson. Just one second. Yes, I said it right, because it's Josephson, and I kept trying to say Johansson, but okay, Josephson. she was the young lady who a gentleman, she called an Uber. She was out with friends in a little college town, and she wanted to leave. Everybody was partying at this, um, I think it was a bar nightclub, and she didn't have too much to drink, but she just wanted to go home. She just was texting and talking to her boyfriend, who, because she was at the lived near the campus. All the girls were going out for the night. They had a nice little system they had, but a couple hours before everybody wanted to leave, she's just like, I want to go home. I'm just going to catch an Uber. And she calls for the Uber. She's waiting for it. What she doesn't know is that there is somebody who's kind of hunting somebody who is going to get in the car. And what he sees her do is, when Ubers, there's one place, as we all know who've ever heard of Uber, like in front of a business establishment, a busy one, you'll see one car come up, and then someone will go, oh, there's the black sedan or the green, whatever, Subaru that I'm supposed to be looking for on my Uber app. And so he sees her lean into a car and then do the, oh, okay. And she walked up to a car, and it actually wasn't her ride. And then he pulled up when he saw that. And then he said, yes, of course, when she opens the door. She gets in, closes the door. Of course, she doesn't know he's got the car set up so you can't open the back door, like those safety locks or what, however. Yeah, something like that. So I'm talking as if the way it ends is they find the gentleman, and the reason we know all these details is because big areas, there's cameras, there's CCTV. He also tried to, it looks like him based on the shoes, the hoodie, the strings on his hoodie, tried to go and use her credit card at two different banks through the middle of the night. And her body was found very close to his family's farm. So there was all these things pointing at it. But the thing that was intriguing about the case was, up until the very end, until conviction, because I mean, as a layperson watching it, it's going, they've got way too much evidence. Oh, and one thing, his girlfriend, she mentioned when the police came by, because they started tracking and noticing, oh, she got into this car, and then TV can find the license plate. And and that was the other thing, is that when the police actually found him and pulled him over, found the car and he was driving it, that he ran. And he, instead of saying, hey, what's going on with this car? So there's a lot of indication that he was the guy.
Yeah.
But when they went in, when they realized it was him, went back to the address of his girlfriend, and the girlfriend said, yeah, the next day I asked him, why is there so much blood in the car? And at the girlfriend's apartment complex, they found bloody paper towels and stuff when he was trying to clean up the car, that had the DNA of the victim on it. So lots of super stuff. So a lot of evidence pointed that this was the person in this car that's on camera, and the same guy who it looks like was at the ATM with this victim. The thing that was intriguing and amazing is, he denied it at the very end, at the very, very end, during, when they're doing the sentencing. But his mother is who was just, it was amazing to watch, because I swear, if I was talking to her, I would believe her that her son didn't do it. And so what was intriguing is, I can sit there and watch and say, there's no way in heck he didn't do it. As a mother myself, could I look at all that evidence and say, no, it wasn't you? So that was the other part. And then, of course, the families it affects. And then Samantha's parents actually went on to state and federal legislators to have a law put in place that Uber and Lyft drivers, or any monetized driving program, would have a valid and recognizable system that, if it's just somebody driving up, because that was the other thing I talked about too, is we're so used to being trusting in the world to a degree. We can be
Mhm.
safe, but I never felt unsafe about taking an Uber, going,
Yeah.
traveling, being in a state, and just in an airport, going, oh, there's an Uber, and I thought what was safe was, oh, I can watch the driver on my app come in. Oh, they're going to be 3 minutes away. Oh, here it comes.
Yeah.
And never thinking of that 2 seconds of all the worlds colliding at once. Of you've been out with friends, you're tired, you're going home, and instead of, for whatever reason, she wasn't watching her app, or she just thought, oh, it's my turn. So that's what that case is about, honoring her life, of course, kind of bringing to awareness to the fact that you really need to take that extra precaution. Sometimes you're going to be alone in places and you want to get home. That's just what's going to happen. But yeah, it was just very intriguing how in my heart, I think that mother's going to go for the rest of her life saying that her son didn't do it, and just both how determined they were, and at the same time. So that was the intriguing part. And that's what we like to do, is look at something not just from the crime, who did it, how was it done, but just the impact it has. Her parents did something with that grief, and worked hard to protect other women, and that's amazing. And that's going to be honoring her life forever for all of us. And then at the same time, the heartbreak of the parents who believe their son. So I thought that was interesting, and that was another. I thought it was a good one.
Yeah. So I think what we've learned with these last two cases is be really careful who you meet off of
Right.
be very
Well,
cautious about
or
that.
or the thing is that, right, so just we put ourselves in as a 19 to 22-year-old. Is
Yeah.
that to go, you don't want the world, especially in that environment. You're close to the university, it's super well lit. Is
Yeah.
that, and then again, is that what's scary about the world, that is that it had to happen once for everyone to wake up to it. Now,
Right.
I can't, so me, just because I'm older, I wouldn't walk up to the car and say, are you the person? I would want to see it on my app. But
Yeah.
that's another thing. But yes, I agree. Because I think that was the thing of her walking up to the car instead of looking at her phone. And a
Yeah.
million, a million things can happen. Your phone can die, but it's like,
Well,
yeah.
I've gotten into taxis way back when
Oh,
they were
yeah.
because I lived and worked downtown, so
Hmm.
I would usually walk to work, and then I worked in restaurants, so I would get
Right.
off really late. So when I got off work, most of the time I would catch a cab. This was like pre-Uber,
Right.
so I would catch a cab, and I got into the same cab twice, like a week or so apart, a few days apart, I don't remember. And the guy passed up my street both times. Like the first time he passed it up, I was like, oh, you just passed my street. He's like, oh, it's okay, it's okay. And then he did it again and like went further out of the way. And I freaked out. I was like, never, no purple cabs again, no purple cabs, because it was a purple cab. But and I specifically knew and got charged extra because like in our downtown at the time there was like a $5 radius if you
Mm,
stayed in these certain streets, and I lived within that.
mm.
So I was like, first off, you're charging me extra, and that probably is what he was doing, is he was just trying to get extra money. But I was really freaked out about that after the second time. Like the first time I can understand, but the second time, why why are you passing my street again?
Yeah. I lean, I mean, you never know. I lean towards, just because whenever people come to visit, everybody wants to go to San Francisco.
Mhm.
And you park in a parking structure, and then you walk everywhere
Yeah.
because it's San Francisco and there's nowhere to park. And then you go, oh, but we want to go over to Coit Tower, or let's go to the Pier 39, all these places. Going, okay, I'm not going to walk 5 miles, thank you, we've been
Right.
walking all day. So you hop in a cab. So my example is, I've lived here my whole life, been in San Francisco a zillion times. I know that it's 2 blocks. It's not 5 blocks at
Yeah.
$4.85, a mile,
Right.
kind of thing. So that's I was just like, okay, you can rip off tourists, but some of us who lived around long enough know that it's not that expensive. But that's what I go to. But it could have been a murder. You never know.
Well, I'm still alive, so I'm thinking that maybe not a murderer, but
That's right.
I don't
So
know.
okay, so that was the our fourth one. That was Samantha, sweet Samantha, Uber, and the next one was our most famous video so far. We've got a neck and neck between Jenny and I, but it is Orville, Orville Lane Majors.
Yes. So this one is my hometown story, which it's actually not my hometown, but it's the town that I worked in when I was in high school. And so he's an angel of death, and he was a nurse at this small hospital in this little town by me. My aunt worked at the hospital with him,
Ooh,
and then right at the time he was getting convicted or arrested, I guess, not convicted, right at the time he was getting arrested for this, I started working there. We never crossed paths because it happened like back to back where he got arrested and then I started work there. But my aunt knew him. And I can't remember how many people, it was 30, roughly 30 people that he murdered. And it like in his head, he was basically euthanizing them, like they're old, they're sick, like they don't want to live anymore. I'm going to put them out of their misery. Like that was his mentality of
was it
it.
was it all at the same hospital?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
didn't he work like the night shift or something? He
I
did.
don't.
Okay, maybe I remember a different case. But was he injecting him with insulin or heart stuff? Do you remember? Something
Heart
was
stuff.
oh, heart stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was, yeah.
Is he still, do
So
you know if he's still alive? Do you think he died
he's
yet?
not.
Yeah.
He had a stroke in prison, I think, or
Mm,
something. Some
mm,
kind of medical thing, heart attack, stroke, something like
right.
that he had in prison and died a couple of years ago. Um, but yeah,
Awful.
it's really interesting. I'm really like, do not understand why this is the most popular episode. Like, it blows my mind because in my head, I was like, nobody's going to even know who this guy is. Nobody's going to look for this. So it's kind of cool that that is the one that currently has the most views.
Right.
Because yeah, I'm like, oh, nobody even knows who this is. Like, I've never heard podcasts like cover
But
it or anything like that. So
not for him, but I know the Angel of Death stories. That's
mhm,
so, because
yeah,
there was, there's been some famous ones I've seen on Dateline or other
yeah.
where you just go, oh my goodness, because that's a scary thing, especially in senior living or, um, yeah, people who are on life support forever because their family doesn't believe in, unplugging them. Pardon me,
Well,
1 second. Pardon me.
right.
Okay, we're back.
Yes.
So what we were saying was that, like I said, that there's so many people that are in like end of life stages, people who won't put them or take them off life support, and so it's terrifying to think that someone like him was there going, I'm just going to push you a little over the edge.
Well,
And
first off, I support euthanasia for humans in those situations. If you're going to be that compassionate to your animals, you would be that compassionate to humans.
mm-hmm.
That's a whole nother situation. And that some countries and states are actually coming around to that being legal now, which I think is a great thing. In certain situations, I do think it should be used very carefully, but not all of these people were at that end stage of life. Some of them were at the end stage of life. The majority of them were not to the point of needing to die right then.
Right, like they were in rehab or something, right? Something, right, whether hip replacement or a heart valve replacement, they were just there to be rehabbed.
No, some of them just had like flu.
God,
And
oh my God.
yeah, like this hospital didn't treat a whole lot. Like it was, It was more of like a triage center, and like it's your ER. If you have anything major done or surgeries, you go to a bigger city, one of the other bigger towns. It was not it was there wasn't too much like
Right.
you're actually dying. Let's end it.
And wasn't this over a certain amount of years?
Yes. 6 years, I think.
And
I
it
don't
was
remember all the details on this, but yeah, it was several years that he worked there. He was slightly older in his, I believe, 40s when this was all going on. So who knows what he did earlier in life? I don't have any information on that, but yeah, it's
yikes.
yeah.
Good story. Creepy story. Thanks everyone who liked it. Yeah, but there's
Yeah.
something about it though. I think that like I'm imagining, because if someone unless somebody knows his name, which is unusual, but
Yeah.
it's kind of the angel of death.
Yeah. Unless
I
there's
would
a
think.
lot of people just searching for him and we're one of the few that actually has anything.
That's
but
true.
It's been so long ago.
Right.
And it's not like an anniversary year. So I think that like that to me is like what, like an anniversary year, maybe people will search for it more because they probably run like a news
right.
or something. But
right.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's really cool that everybody's interested in that.
Yeah, on both of our channels. I
Yeah.
think 117 views on one channel and over 211 on the other.
Wow.
I know for that one. So that's exciting. So obviously people are loving it.
Yeah.
Over 300 people. So so we strongly recommend it. That was a great one. Scary.
Yeah.
And I think that's the height of the horror of it, because if Willow. Willow's our third. Oh, good. That's how much she loves the show. She's showing us her behind, right? That right before we started taping, Willow was yelling for more food, and Jenny was saying, "You've had enough for today." So she's made her presence.
Yes.
She's
and now she's going to her comfy bed over there.
Oh, that's adorable. I would have my dog in here, except it would be ridiculous because he doesn't know manners whatsoever, barking and screaming and scratching and stuff. But he's awesome. I wish. That's for another day. Well, and for a calmer dog, I'm sure. All right, so another double Jenny one. The next one is, I know, there you go. Then the sixth show that we did was Ronnie Long, exonerated Ronnie Long.
Oh yes, so Ronnie Long, years ago was convicted of murdering, and I don't want to say elderly, but a slightly older black or white woman. He more or less got convicted based on his race and spent 34 years in prison for a murder he didn't commit. It was in the South in the 60s. It was everything that could go wrong with a case for a defendant that actually didn't commit the crime went wrong for him. Like the way they had her identify, he was identified. He had them come in and, oh, no, sorry. It was not murder. It was rape. It was rape. Sorry. Had the rape victim come in to the courtroom when he had a court date for another minor offense and point him out while he was in court. And it was kind of like he was wearing like the jacket and the hat that was in style then. So a lot of people were wearing it. But it was his actual bodily features did not match the features. Skin tone was different. Facial hair was different. There was a lot of different things, but it just happened to be that for whatever reason that day, she said yes. She was set up. He was set up. It was a terrible situation of how that happened, and then there was really no actual evidence against him, and it was long before DNA or anything like that could have helped at all. But he did finally recently get exonerated and is now out of prison. So that's great. I'm glad to hear that. But 30 years in prison for not committing a crime is crazy to me. And I know we went over it in detail in the actual episode, but please, if you're on a jury, please think things through. Please don't take people's word at face value. Like, make sure that there's evidence to back it up. Make sure the circumstances that the police are involved in, that they're not screwing around, setting somebody up or something like that, because that stuff happens. It actually happens a lot. And I feel like we're finally seeing a lot of people getting exonerated because of police misconduct or lack of evidence, or any number of things that never should have had somebody convicted in the first place. Also, put you in that defendant's seat. If you really aren't sure that they did it, you need to take that. Like, is there a reasonable doubt? Is it beyond a reasonable doubt that they actually committed that crime? Or do you want to punish someone for the crime? Because understand that you could be in that defendant's seat at some point, never have committed the crime. And if, there's sloppy work, but you convince people because they just want to blame someone, then you're the one locked up for 30 years for a crime you didn't commit. Like, I think.
Well, also, I mean, it's I'm not sure if there's a rapist who just rapes one time, so you put the wrong person in jail, right? But
yeah,
right. So there's all that types, but there's more cases that we'll have, but complete cases, and then from this era, 70s, 80s, and 90s, and it's as DNA was becoming perfected, but then there's lab people, lab scientists who weren't doing proper testing, or they weren't, they were paying money under the table to have the lab certified when it wasn't. It was almost, there's this one place was, so I mean, like thousands and thousands of cases had to be overturned because this one guy, he was kind of leaning towards whoever needed the lab test to go towards, right? Right. So I mean, that's one person corruption, but then you have to go, okay, of those thousands and thousands, how many for reals were guilty? How many people? And then, to say, okay, we have to overturn all these cases, but but that can happen. And unfortunately, the appeals process is usually very low percentage. Just like, I'm guilty, go through the appeals process, automatic, takes years and years and years. And then your final no is your final no. Then if you're lucky, it warrants the Innocence Project or another organization. And so, but I just read, I'll just add this for this, and it's going to be interesting, a case to cover in the future. Just read an article about somebody who was freed by the Innocence Project as not being the murderer. 2 weeks later, he got arrested for murdering somebody else.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
So go ahead.
Oh.
No, no, you go. I will stop. Go ahead.
Okay. Now DNA testing has gotten so powerful that now, like, I can shake someone's hand and then my DNA can show up at a crime scene later. So because of touch DNA, so now it's to the point where it's like, okay, is DNA even relevant anymore? Or at what point does it stop being relevant? Because, what are we going to never shake somebody's hand again? Are we just going to walk around in rubber suits so that we don't leave our DNA anywhere ever? Like what, like
Yeah,
to
but
me that's
yeah,
scary.
yeah.
And then using genealogical DNA like that, I have a very hard time not having like very bad feelings about that.
Well, I would say like for DNA, I question when there's no DNA, right?
Oh,
So it's like, oh, and this just like what we've learned, a knife murder is pretty brutal. So usually, and if you kill somebody, stab somebody 50 times, usually the knife slips back. We've all seen it. The hands get cut.
yeah.
There's commingling of blood. The fact that that body, the person you just killed with a knife, has no DNA from the sweat, from your own blood, right? And then you go like, well, it's him because we said so, whatever. And yep, maybe it was just bad, but I would want to see DNA. I need to see some DNA in that kitchen on that floor. That
Yeah.
because that was so personal and intimate, that attack was. But yeah, I think that I I get, because the touch DNA, it's not as strong as your hair and your blood, of course, or your
Right.
saliva.
Yeah.
But it would make the DA work harder. So I don't, I think some cases, because I guess that argument, it's really smart argument or question, because DA can work both ways, right? They're going, those cases, we're saying you're innocent because the DNA didn't match,
Yeah.
right? But now here we are with, now our DNA is 10 times better than it ever was. And is there some, minuscule part that could match? I don't know. It's
Well,
interesting.
I listened to a podcast a while back, and this is like kind of why I bring this up. And the guy, I don't remember all the details because it's been a while, but it was basically like the DNA was tiny, tiny trace amounts of DNA that convicted him in the first place.
Mm.
And so he's, I believe, in the process of fighting to get out.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really hard because that DNA is there. And he's like, no, I really am innocent. And,
Yeah.
I don't know I don't know how all of it panned out at the time or is panning out for him,
Mm-hmm.
depending on what part of the process he's in. But that is kind of scary to think that, like, you could just be living your life, or like, what if you go to the gas station and then somebody gets murdered at the gas station and your DNA is there in the wrong place, but you just happen to be there earlier that day or whatever, I don't know.
Yeah, I
There's
think now,
so many,
yeah, there's so many ways. That's for DNA. Nowadays, everything is on camera. Everything, just everything's on camera. As you drive into a grocery store, it's on the camera. Somebody could, if they want, you got your phone with you, it's a GPS. So it's almost as if it happened at the gas station and you were there in the morning, but the murder happened at night, they would see that you weren't there.
yeah, but
But
also
yeah,
cameras break. I live in a very murdery city, and there's very
that's
few
true.
murders solved.
Right.
With cameras being everywhere, with everything being everywhere, it's definitely, I see every day how that's not a guarantee. Like
That's
that
right.
really,
That's true.
I mean, yes, it helps, but it's not surefire, and it doesn't, although the majority of the murders here are people that know each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I don't want to say gangs because I don't necessarily think that they're all gangs, but it's this group is fighting this group and then they kill each other, and then so nobody wants to talk. That's the majority of the murders here.
Got it.
But also, those are harder to solve even because nobody talks.
Right. And the other thing too is, though, is that, but you hear prosecutors saying that then, and defending attorneys say that they have to work so hard for the jury because the jury's expecting what we see on TV.
Right.
So if a case doesn't have DNA, so that is also telling, right? So if you go, what if it's this? The jury's going to be like, if you want to say put somebody away for the rest of their life, you better show us something. We don't need to see Matlock. We need to, but show us something that makes sense. and not
Right.
a trace of this and a smear of that.
Yeah.
Or because I think we've grown to, especially with TV shows and everything, we we need, there's not always a smoking gun, because that's the circumstantial cases,
Yeah.
is to go, but there are cases that go, you were in the area, people saw you. But I agree. I think jurors are going to be expecting more, but that's an interesting question about DNA.
Yeah. I was on a murder trial jury
Yeah.
years and years ago, and there was no smoking gun. And it was really hard. He did end up getting it.
Right.
He had 3 separate trials because he had done so many things that he wasn't going to get a fair trial if it was all one.
Right.
So it was the one I was on, it was 2 murders and a gun charge. We convicted him on 1 murder, not the other, because literally there was a bike in the alley and a murdered man, and the gun was the same type of gun that was used in the other murder. How in the hell are you going to convict somebody? Like, basically, there's a dead guy in the alley.
Right.
Convict this. Like, no, we can't do that. But yeah, and it was like his shirt was there, and like the neighbors saw him, but it was a really bad neighborhood, and it was a matter of like every single witness was a prostitute or a drug dealer that was getting deals on their sentences to testify to every single one. So, I mean,
it's almost like a la carte going, we know we got him on this one, let's just throw this one in so we can close the case.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it was 3 separate charges. They did 3 separate charges, and then he had 3 different cases. So we saw one with the 2 murders and the gun charge, and then I don't know what else he had. But apparently he was a huge drug dealer in this one part of town that was bad, and he murdered multiple people allegedly and all this stuff. He did get convicted on 1 murder. It's still to this day is like, I don't know. Like, I know he did it. I don't know if I should have convicted him. That's where that's my.
Yes, because it is the state's job to prove it, but it's a really good question to say. And I hope, because just based on some of the trials that we see online, is that they're just setting the table. Like it's like here's the video from step 1, and here's the evidence from step 2, and here's the bullet analysis, here's the GPS. So I think because hopefully jurors are, and of course it all depends on where you live too, and what bias, and then just the jury process of trying to pull as much bias as you can, and then you still don't know. It's a crapshoot, right, between 12 people, because most juries and jurisdictions has to be unanimous. If they can,
So I was the holdout. I will say I was the holdout. So
not surprised.
No, it's not a surprise.
I know. I just want to see one more thing. But yeah, the really sad case, the exonerations. But that's why I brought up the article that I read about the gentleman, and then it's I want to watch that case and maybe present it, because it's either Oppo research against the Innocence Projects, of releasing people. Yeah. Every time we see during
they're usually so particular about the cases they take.
Right. But then again, you know what? Spending 25 years in jail could harden someone. Or who knows? Who knows? And,
I guess, if you are locked up for 25, you're not going to be scared to go back to prison for something you actually did.
Right. Or to go, my only choice is to get back in the game or get into the game. And then it was, because it was, they think they have them pretty, and a lot of evidence for,
was it somebody that helped lock him up?
They were killed. No, I think it was a fight or something. I'll get more details
Okay.
to the link, because I just remember thinking of that going, my first thought was that would be somebody who's advocating for never letting people out, right?
Yeah.
Or to go, but it also says it's that old thing of saying, should a guilty person go free versus an innocent man go stay? You know what I mean? Be locked up.
Yeah.
And whether so, but it does put into question to go, well, two things. Kind of, not for me personally, because somebody could not have done it one time and have done it the second time because
Right.
circumstances. It doesn't negate it, but kind of from a like a media perspective, because it's like, these big bold letters, just exonerated within 2 months, killed, two people.
But yeah, like you said, it could have been hard. Like if you said 25 years in prison.
Something like that, 20 or 25, yeah.
Okay, because that's like depending on the prison, can be a very rough situation. And like I'm assuming he was fairly young when he went in. So you go in when you're young, you spend like the majority of your adult life in prison. That's what and that's prison, that not always, but that can be prison life if you are in a rough prison where there are fights and there is, all this crazy shit going on, that it might just be, you get in a fight out there and this is how you fight because you're fighting for your life. Like that.
I think prison is survival, is to survive. And you go in groups and be, part of these alliances that help you survive, and then probably help you survive on the outside.
Yeah.
Because it's a whole world. Yeah.
And that's the thing, because I know when I was looking at Ronnie's case, they really didn't do anything when they exonerated him. Like they didn't set him up for success. And I don't think that they normally set prisoners up for success when they're getting released. If you lock somebody up for 10 years, even, let alone 20 or 30 years, you can't just turn them loose on the street. The entire world has changed so much in the last 10 years. Can you imagine being locked away from everything for 10 years and then getting out now and like, you don't know what any of this stuff is. You don't know how to operate. You don't know how to operate in society. Like there's so many things that should be looked at also, because you're going to probably, with so many exonerations, you're probably going to get this more and more because, these people have been locked up for so long. You don't know how to operate out in the real world.
Yeah, but it's still a very new case, and maybe he didn't. Just the way it was presented, because why even bring it up? But that's the story, is he was just exonerated for one crime. Not that you couldn't do both. But my first thought was, is this like Alpha research against the Innocence Project? Because when there's so many, I follow a lot of defense attorneys. Their job is to defend. And a lot of it is attacking the case of the state's case. Mm-hmm. So if they can get somebody on a technicality, happy as a clam. If they did it, fine, we're going to get you off. That's the system that we have. And so knowingly, and that's why defense attorneys sometimes are looked down upon, going, you're trying to say, that somebody on a technicality, did the cops do something wrong? Did the DA do something wrong? And,
speaking of that, Adnan Syed just got out.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see if they pick that case up and go look at the other people.
They suspect that they're just going to dismiss.
I think I saw that, but pretty much dismiss. Yeah. And then, but they should pursue it, because then it's not. Yeah, dismiss it for him, but hopefully, they'll still. I'm sure her family wants them to try and find the killer.
Well, they apparently have other suspects that they had even back in the 90s that they never looked at. They just pinned it on him. And so the shitty ass detectives that were on that case, which have been proven time and time again to be shitty detectives, they said, this is our guy. So they just made everything fit, which anybody that knows about that trial knows that was a terrible trial. And jury, come on.
Right. And the other,
innocent or not, you should not have convicted him based on that information that you had.
But I think just we're talking 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago.
Yeah.
It's almost 30, right? If it,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
99.
yeah.
So
So yeah, so like 23 years ago. So even then, it had a lot to do with how that was presented, the persuasion,
yeah.
and then to say, because we'd sit there and go, how is somebody, how is this guy, or just like the guy who everyone was going after, saying, go check that guy because he said he was there with him
Yeah.
and that he knew about it and that he was the one who borrowed his phone all day. So it's like
Yeah.
that's because that was the big thing at the time, GPS records. Now you can get them in 2 seconds. But
Right.
the
Yeah.
GPS, but then the whole thing is like, well, wait, he was seen here. And the answer was, oh, because I had his phone. That was always weird to me, is that there's reasonable doubt right there that it could have been somebody else. That's reasonable doubt. But
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
and if you like, I re-listened to Serial recently. So, and the phone records, like obviously there was like an episode or two on,
Right.
but basically like the cops, I may have watched something else too, but the cops like pulled the phone records and then made their timeline match the phone records instead of like looking at it. So they pinpointed, and there was certain things that like were in the original story that they cut out because it didn't match the phone record.
Okay.
So like it was very fabricated. These are
Right.
the type of detectives that like give me like distrust in the entire system.
Yes, plus right. So yeah, there's a lot, and but there again, it goes back to who has the power. Police have officer, police can during interrogations can lie to get you to, to bring the stories out. There's a lot of stuff, and that's the law. It's not illegal for them to do that. It's trying, if they, and so sometimes you think you're so committed to the story that you're trying to put together, because a lot of times, right, as we've talked about, the person who has died in this terrible manner has no voice anymore, and
Yeah.
nobody's talking, so they've got to try to put it together.
Yeah.
And we all know, we've seen a million shows, they're going to go to the person who's closest to them, the person who last saw them. And what, 95% of crimes are committed by someone you actually know or in your vicinity. So let's start going circling the wagons around the husband, the wife, the children, the aunts, the uncles, the friends, the business partners, all that stuff. Pull their
Yes.
data and everything, right? So
Also, everyone, do not talk to cops. Ask for an attorney immediately. Don't say anything, especially if you're innocent. Don't say anything. Please just ask for your attorney.
right.
They
And on
cannot
that,
ask you anything else after you ask for your attorney. They have to just shut up and
right.
get you your.
Yes. See, I listen to a lot of defense attorneys. That's all they say is just shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah. If knock on the door, am I being detained? Yep. Okay. Then I'll call my
Attorney.
lawyer. Yep. But I'll go with you
That's
because
it.
you're the police.
Right.
But I need an attorney. You don't have to
Yeah.
ask me a question. I know I don't want to talk to you.
No.
Always better. So
Not.
yes.
Yeah.
And if you need to, just watch a few interrogation videos
Right.
to see the beginning. They you absolutely did nothing wrong, and 6 hours later you're telling them and saying, I think I might know where the body is, when
Right.
like,
You never did.
it wasn't a murder.
He
He didn't do it. So
yeah.
because it's a whole technique and all that good stuff. So speaking of interrogations, all of these shows have it. My case, the next case, and which is going to have an update soon, is the famous Scott Peterson case. Scott Peterson was the man who killed Lacey Peterson, or was found guilty of killing Lacey Peterson. He was sentenced, and he was sentenced to death row. In 2020, the California Supreme Court overturned his death sentence and turned it into a life sentence. Newsflash: it took 2 years to move him. Just in the last few days, he was moved out of San Quentin into a prison near Sacramento. But what has happened in the last, I think August was the last update, but the cycles of appeals and just our judicial system runs slow. And so there was something that came up about one of the jurors. This case was 20 something years ago, maybe. I don't have my dates. It's in the video, but
I think it's like
the
25. I think it was
just
in the 90s, wasn't it?
the late 90s. Yeah, I'd have to look it up.
Oh,
I don't have it memorized, the dates,
yeah.
but it had to, yeah, something. But so because I think he's been in jail for 20 years, so maybe it's just right.
Yeah.
Either if yeah, maybe it's just right 99 to 2001. Okay, I'll get the dates will be more specific on the video. So, but so he's had people working on his behalf. His family definitely still believes in his innocence. People working on his behalf, combing through the entire, you know, just anything that went on in the case. And what did come up was that one of the jurors was very vocal. Now, when she went in and was interviewed before the case started, saying, "I can be impartial in this case," but after the case, because it was so sensationalized, people from all over the world were watching the case. It had everything. It had intrigue. 8.5 month pregnant woman disappeared and then was found murdered. Come to find out the husband was having an affair. It just had everything. And newsflash, it was 35 miles away from my home. Wasn't in my town, but it was close. So now I feel like I'm in a whole murdery state. But
You are.
the fact that I think, but the fact that it was so close and in a town, it would take you a half hour to get to. And I live in in kind of a valley agriculture because California's a huge state, so there's farms all over the place, and and that's exactly what the town was where her family and this family came from, and it just seems so weird, but but then but going, living when the media is coming through your town, and then it's 24/7 local and of course national news. But that was my big interest, but you can't not watch it. But I do remember this one woman who she said something was, we just wanted to make sure that, we would give, um, something for Lacey and Connor, who's the baby that she was carrying that was also found. Of course, he was dead as well because he died inside the mother. But the way she said it was, after the whole trial they did, because of all of the media, they interviewed and they had this big, huge panel of all of the jurists afterwards, who not only gave him was guilty, but then they also voted for him to have the death penalty. They do this big splay of media and they're all up. And this one woman says, "We just wanted to do right by Lacey. We just wanted to do this." And that was something. And then she did a ton of interviews after that. I don't know if she wrote a book. I don't know if she wrote articles for magazine. I just remember her. And then but what's happening right now is, a couple months ago, it was brought up to a judge to say, I think there should be his lawyers are saying, we want to redo this trial because we think this woman had a preconceived, she was not able to be impartial just based on her statements after the trial. And the judge said, you know what, there's enough. I'm going to look at that. And I think, I think it's going to be, he's got to have an answer within 90 days. And that's coming up like November 11th. So in November sometime, we should hear if he will grant a retrial of this case, which would be unbelievable 20
Yeah.
years later. And but it's so funny because it just came in the news going, oh my gosh, because I talked to Jenny, I said, I think there's going to be an update. And then to go, a retrial after all this time. And then they talk about this juror. And it was my first thing to go, her face was all over the place, just jibber jabbering. But that's another lesson for the jury.
Keep your mouth shut.
Well, that just happened with the Ghislaine Maxwell trial in New York, the Jeffrey Epstein person who she was charged with bringing girls in. What?
That's no surprise in that case.
But a jury was brought in afterwards because he went on TV and did a big national interview, and then on that interview he said that he had been violated as a child.
Yeah.
And so, right, and they went back and they went, wait, when you were asked that question, her attorney said, went back to the questionnaires and said, you said when that question was asked, you put no. So that the judge actually, he had to go back in and talk to the judge just to make
Yeah.
sure. And the judge said, okay, good. I'm satisfied with your answer. But I mean, it could go both ways, right? Somebody could be guilty because there could be someone on the trial and then if the person is very persuasive. On the other hand, if but for a judge to look at it, and if she wants to say things, because you just never want someone to go, I say I was the defendant. It's like, I don't like Rita's hair, I don't like her glasses, I don't like her attitude, and I'm on the jury. Doesn't matter whether she did anything or not. I just got to wear 5 from her. I mean, it's something, but or to go, I just can't believe her. I don't like it that she doesn't smile enough. Whatever.
Mhm.
Then, and not look at the evidence, just look on based on. But I remember that woman. I'm thinking, the interviews she did, because she was trying to be this tough person, going, we're gonna, get justice and all that stuff. And going, isn't that wild to be biting you on the behind? So that we'll have an update for, because I'm so interested, and boy, oh boy, will that be covered. It won't be covered like it was then, because that was so new, but because people after the case, people did not like who he was, but I'm sure some law to be people will cover it. But yeah, so I'll have an update. And at the end of this, going on forever, we did a lot of shows. Seems like we did a lot of shows because we keep talking
Yeah.
about them. But we'll announce, because we're going to change the format up a little bit for this show. If the universe works for me electronically, it'll be next week. But some of the updates will be able to come in sooner than later. So okay, we only Jenny, we only have 3 more, but the
I
next
think
one.
maybe we should update that next time, and let's just go with our new format and update on these cases, because we've been going for like over an hour.
Have we? I lost
Yeah.
I lost track of time. All right,
Yeah.
surprise. We will talk about the other cases. The big surprise is, um watch all our videos. If you haven't watched all of them, we just listed the first 7. And
Yeah.
there are 3 more, and then there's 2 more actually in the system that are going to premiere soon. But we're going to start live streaming on Tuesday nights, right,
Yeah.
Jenny?
Yeah.
Tuesday
Yeah.
nights, right around, well,
Nice.
we're in 2 different time zones, but
6
um,
Eastern.
about 6 Eastern,
Yes.
3 o'clock, because we want to invite the audience in, because some of these comments we love, and we want to talk about cases as they come up, and just like we're doing now, we're just talking. But we thought we want to bring a live audience because we watch the YouTubes as well, and we're part of the chat, and we're small enough that we want to start. And the first, we're going to invite our friends and family, of course, to see if we can get 2 or 3 people in. But we're going to just do it, and the first one's going to be clunky because we're not great at electronics, but it's the same thing. Instead of just jibber jabbering on and then uploading it, why don't we do it at the same time? We don't have to do any editing. We could just be funny
Yeah.
and talk all. We can talk a lot, right?
And let's see how long it takes me to get shut down for talking shit about the FBI.
There you go. We may not even. Yeah, we might be knocked down before if I upload this first. So hopefully that's the case. You probably won't know this until after a live stream, but maybe I'll do this one first. Maybe, yeah, I'll show this up on Friday. Yeah, and maybe I'll do a little clip and talk about, hey, watch us live stream. But yeah, thanks for sitting through the whole thing. And then yeah, look for us on YouTube. I Don't Like Murder. Jenny,
Thanks.
always a pleasure.
Yes. Great to
All
be
right.
back.
Yay. See you guys later next time. Bye.